Of course, we are coming to a conclusion. We are all aware that we have but a few days in hand of Ramadan, of this blessed month. So even our tafsir program is also coming to a conclusion, and we are coming to the end of the Quran. But of course, what we have been doing throughout the entire month is but a drop in the ocean. It is but one drop in the ocean. That is, we will never be able to cover the entire Quran, of course, and we have more the limited time in our hand. So the Quran and its explanation can go on and on for years and years, yet a person still will learn and discover more. So tonight I will be sharing with you some portions of a surah in the 26th juz, and the name of the surah is Surah Al-Hujurat. Hujurat is actually the plural of hujra. Hujra is an Arabic word which means a room, an apartment, or a chamber. So this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls it the surah of Hujurat, meaning the surah of chambers. And inshallah, through, as we explained, some of these verses, you will come to understand why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose to call this surah Suratul Hujurat. So Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقدموا بين يدي الله ورسوله واتقوا الله إن الله سميع عليم. O believers, do not go in front of Allah and His Rasul, واتقوا الله, and fear Allah. إن الله سميع عليم. Verily Allah is all hearing and all knowing. This is the translation of the first verse. The second verse says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَرْفَعُوا أَصْوَاتَكُمْ. O believers, do not raise your voice. First, just to cover some aspects of the first ayah. In the first ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, O believers, do not go ahead, do not go before Allah and His Rasul, and fear Allah. What does this mean? When we open the books of tafsir, we find that to not go before Allah or in front of Him means that one meaning, one explanation out of the many explanations. One explanation is that we don't consider our decisions, our logic, and our understanding superior to that of Allah. So if Allah says, for example, something is good or something is bad, then you and I, as humans, as creation of Allah, the servants of Allah, we don't have any rights to present a counter opinion to that of Allah. So for instance, Allah says wine, alcohol is haram. It is prohibited, clearly in the Quran and Hadith. So one example of going against this particular ayah, that going in before Allah, in front of Him, would be that someone says, like how many non-Muslims would say that, I think if you drink wine in a small quantity, I think if you drink wine, alcohol, beer, in a small quantity, little quantity, then it is beneficial for you. And science has something to say about that. They will, put out the benefits to that, the health benefits to that, so on and so forth. So this is one example where a person is going in front of Allah, because Allah says this is haram, this is prohibited, this is harmful for you. A person comes and he says no, but if you drink it, if you consume it in a certain quantity, then it's actually beneficial. So this is what Allah is prohibiting, that don't make yourself before Allah. Don't think that your opinions, your understanding, your logic is superior to that of Allah. Allah is all-knowing. Allah is all-knowledgeable. He knows what is good, what is bad. So whenever Allah says something, you and I, we need to put a stop to our opinions, our logic, our understanding, and say, Allah said this, that's all. So لا تقدموا بين يدي الله. Do not go in front of Allah ورسوله, and also His messenger. واتقوا الله, and fear Allah. So first Allah says, Don't go in front of me. Don't put yourself superior to me. And don't put yourself superior to my messenger, to my Rasul, to Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam. What does that mean? Two explanations I offer to you. Number one is physical. That is that if Allah's Nabi is walking, then it is not allowed for his ummati, his ummah, a follower, to physically go in front of him as a mark of respect, as a sign of respect. If Allah's Nabi is walking, then you are not allowed as a follower, as an ummati of Muhammad alayhi salam, to go in front of him where he is. There's actually one hadith wherein Abu Dharr, a great Sahabi, radiyallahu anhu, him and Abu Bakr, they were walking, and Allah's Nabi was watching, and Abu Dharr happened to walk in front of Abu Bakr. Abu Dharr happened to pass and go in front of him. Allah's Nabi said, "Oh Abu Dharr, do you tend to go in front of a man upon whom the sun has not risen, anyone better than Abu Bakr? Such a person that the sun has not risen, anyone better and superior to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu." So Allah's Nabi taught Abu Dharr that even physically, you should walk behind him because he is your senior and you are his junior in status and even in age and in rank. So that's the first explanation. The second explanation is somewhat similar to that of what we explained. Do not, perceive yourself to be superior to Allah. And that is that Allah's Nabi alayhi salam, he left us with his ahadith, his statements, his, what he had uttered in his life, and the Sahaba had preserved it and recorded it and passed on to us. So Allah's Nabi has told us many things to do and also many things not to do. He said, this is good, this is bad, this is positive, this is negative. This is how you should live, this is how you should not live, this is how you should eat, this is how you should not eat, so on and so forth, the entire life, the entire Islam. Now a person comes, a Muslim or a non-Muslim, a Muslim would make more sense, wherein he says, Allah's Nabi said that 1400 years ago, but in my opinion, or in my research, or in modern science, this is actually, I have a better opinion, na'udhu billah, than what Allah's Nabi had said. I think what he has said is outdated, na'udhu billah. It's old, it's gone. It's only applicable in his time, and in today's time we need to be modern. We need to introduce our own opinions, our own understanding, our own theology. So this is what Allah is prohibiting in this verse, that don't perceive yourself to be superior to Allah and His Rasul. Don't think that you are superior to Allah and His Rasul. So if Allah's Nabi has said something, then that's the final say. As a Muslim, our aqidah and our belief is that if Allah's Nabi said something, we don't have any right to say anything against it. We should support it, we should believe in it, and we should practice upon it. Because unfortunately, you have many of us who tend to think that many of the things ahadith Allah's Nabi has shared 1400 years ago is perhaps not applicable, or it's not wise to practice upon it today. So that is completely false and it is incorrect. Inna Allah sami'un alim. Allah is all hearing and all knowing. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O believers, la tarfa'u aswatakum fawqa sawti an-nabi. Do not raise your voice above the voice of Nabi. وَلَا تَجْهَرُوا لَهُ بِالْقَوْلِ. And do not speak to him loudly. كَجَهَرِ بَعْضِكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ. As you would speak loudly to each other. أَن تَحْبَطَ أَعْمَالُكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَشْعُرُونَ. Out of the fear that your deeds will be void and you won't even know about it. This is the translation of ayah number 2 of Surah Al-Hujurat. In this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us believers, all Muslims, all believing man and woman, a clear-cut instruction, and that is that we are not allowed very strictly to raise our voice above the voice of Rasul alayhi salam. Now, the first addresses of the Quran are, of course, the Sahaba. They are the first to receive the Quran. They are the first to be addressed by the Quran. What had happened was, as I will come to it in the coming verses, some people came on and they were seeking Rasul alayhi salam, some Bedouins. And they said, they called out in a loud voice, "Oh Muhammad, come out, we are looking for you." And they came to his house where he lived in Masjid Nabawi. Of course, his house was adjacent to it. And they called out, "Ya Muhammad, ukhruj ilayna," that, "Oh Muhammad, come out, we need to talk to you," like that. Second incident behind this verse is that Abu Bakr and Umar radiyallahu anhuma were in a gathering, and some other Sahaba were there, and Allah's Nabi was also there. And a question came. And Umar had one opinion, and Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu had another opinion. And they started to exchange opinions. But it got little loud as they were somewhat debating and arguing that no, it should be like this, and Umar said no, it should be like that. It got a bit loud in the presence of Rasul alayhi salam. In the presence of Rasul alayhi salam, meaning Allah's Nabi is sitting there, and their voices got little loud in Allah's Nabi's presence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this verse immediately, that, "O believers, don't raise your voice above the voice of Nabi, and do not call on to him loudly as you would call on to each other." Because you see, you and I, we are friends, we are relatives, we know each other. If I see you, for example, at a far distant place, and I say, "Oh Muhammad, come here," or I say, "Oh brother Abdullah, can you come here?" I call you loudly. I say, "Zayd, can you come here? Abdullah, please come here." Allah is saying that this is not how you should talk nor call my Nabi. You want to talk to him, you want to speak to him, you need to go to him, present him in his, present yourself before him and speak to him in a kind and a soft manner. Because what will happen? أَن تَحْبَطَ أَعْمَالُكُمْ. Allah says, I will nullify all your good deeds. I will nullify all your good deeds. There's one incident I am reminded of during the time of Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu anhu. Two individuals from Taif came to Medina, and they were sitting in Al-Masjid al-Nabawi, in Allah's Nabi's masjid, in the Prophet's masjid. So Umar bin Khattab is the Khalifa. He is the Caliph of the time. And they are two travelers sitting in the Masjid al-Nabawi, and they were conversing and discussing, and their voices became loud. Now understand the severity of this act. They are on one side of Masjid al-Nabawi. They are talking loudly. Umar bin Khattab hears them from the other side of the masjid, from the other side. So as he hears them, he picks up a rock. Now this is of course not a rock, a paper. He picks up a rock and he slightly throws it on the ground, just like that. As he throws the pebble on the ground, they make eye contact with Umar, and he says, "Be quiet." He then approaches them and he says, "Let's go out of the masjid." He then asked them, "Where are you from?" They said, "We are from Taif." He then said, "By Allah, if you were from Medina, from this very same city, and you were to do what you were doing, I would have punished you in a manner that would have served as an example for all the Medina people. Do you have any understanding, any awareness that Allah's Nabi is right there? He is right there next in this masjid, and you people are raising your voice in the presence of Allah's Nabi. He said, you're lucky to be from a different city, from Ta'if. Otherwise, I would have punished you and made you an example for all the people of Medina. Now look at the respect of Umar bin Khattab. If he wanted, as he heard them talking loudly, he could have also shouted that, hey, people, you guys need to be quiet. No, he didn't do that. He had, of course, it was old time, so he picked up a small rock, he threw it, and as it made that sound, they looked at him, and he just made that ishara, the indication that you guys need to be quiet. And then as he approached them, he held their hands and he took them outside, and he said what I shared with you. Because it is our belief as Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah that Allah's Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is alive in his qabr. Al-Anbiya ahya'un fi quburihim. Allah takes their soul once, and then afterwards they are buried, Allah returns their souls. That is why even when you and I recite Durood Sharif or salutation, or Allahumma salli ala, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, Allahumma barik ala Muhammad, what happens? The malaika, the angels, they take those durood, those salutations, they present it to Allah's Nabi, and then they say that, O Nabi of Allah, your ummati, so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, has sent you this gift. And then Allah's Nabi, in return, says, he responds to that, and Allah sends mercy to that person 10 times for each salawat, for each durood he recited. So Allah's Nabi is acknowledged. He acknowledges people's durood that are being sent. And he is even told and informed of the sender's name and his father's name as well. So the Anbiya and our Prophet ﷺ are alive in their graves. So that is one thing which I would like to point out, very important, that when you and I, we go to Umrah, or when you and I go to Hajj, and we present ourselves to Masjid al-Nabawi, then we need to be very, very quiet. We need to be silent. No talking at all. We need to shut off our phones. We need to, close our mouth and proceed very quietly without talking to anyone. I mean, it's just so sad. It's so sad. I have went myself to Hajj and I have seen the disrespect there. Yes, you could say that they don't know, but not knowing is not an excuse. Ignorance is not an excuse, because this is mandatory. This is obligatory. It's kind of like saying that I didn't know there was such thing as Fajr Salah. I thought there was only 4 Salah, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. I didn't know Fajr existed. Similarly, a person needs to be very quiet. No pin drop silence in the presence of Rasulullah when he goes there and he offers his salah, his salawat, his salutations, and his salam. What does Allah say if you don't abide by this? Meaning, if you happen to talk loudly in front of Allah's Nabi, in front of his Nabi, what does he say? أَن تَحْبَطَ أَعْمَالُكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَشْعُرُونَ. Your good deeds will be erased. All erased. All in the drain. وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَشْعُرُونَ. And you won't even have a clue about it. You won't even know what in the world just happened. This just tells us how serious of an offense it is to raise our voices while we are in the presence of Rasul alayhi salam. Allah says, if you talk loudly in his presence, then I will clear all your good deeds, erase, gone, no more. You see, in Islam, there are two deeds. There are two such sins, I should say, two such sins. A person commits them, Allah erases all of his good deeds. Two such sins in Islam, a person perpetrates them, then Allah erases all of the good deed that person has done in his entire life. Number one is shirk. Shirk means to associate partners with Allah, to ascribe someone, if another deity with Allah, and na'udhu billah, to say that just as Allah is God, for example, Jesus is also a God. So this is shirk. This is ascribing partners to Allah. So when a person, a Muslim, whether he be 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and he has done good deeds for all of these years, for 3 decades, 4 decades, after 4 decades, he does shirk with Allah. He ascribes partners with Allah, then all of his good deeds are null and are erased. That's number one. And number two is this particular sin, to raise our voices in the presence of Allah's Nabi. Allah says, this is also another sin. If you happen to commit it, I will erase all your good deeds. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَغُضُّونَ أَصْوَاتَهُمْ عِنْدَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. Verily, those who lower their voices in the presence of Rasulullah, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ امْتَحَنَ اللَّهُ قُلُوبَهُمْ لِلتَّقْوَى. Those are the people whom Allah has tested their hearts for piety, for taqwa. لَهُمْ مَغْفِرَةٌ. For them is forgiveness, وَأَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ, and a huge reward. I mean, can you imagine? Allah is saying that if you can lower your voice and just be quiet, no talking at all, in front of Rasul, in his presence, what does Allah say? Then Allah says that is a sign your heart has taqwa, number one. Number two, he says, for such people there is maghfirah. For such people there is forgiveness, وَأَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ, and a huge reward. Allah is referring to Jannah. That if you can be quiet in the presence of Rasulullah, Allah promises you Jannah, and Allah promises you forgiveness. So these are, the nights which we are in now. These are very auspicious and very blessed nights. So what we need to do, of course, none of us can go or will be, anyone did not go to Umrah in this month of Ramadan. But what we should do, at least where we are now at the moment, we should recite salawat, or basically durood sharif in abundance to Rasul alayhi salam in these blessed nights. From the many a'mal we should do, one of the significant a'mal we should be doing is reciting durood sharif. Because as I said, what we are talking about tonight is respect to Rasul and being, quiet in front of him, not raising our voice. And because that when our salawat are sent to him, he is informed of the sender and even the sender's father's name. So this is a very, blessed amal, a very blessed good deed. You and I, we need to, start doing or, implement in our lives. We make dua to Almighty Allah that He gives us tawfiq to practice on what was said.